And today I'm very excited because that's the first time we're going to talk about Lyme disease with Heather Gray. She is functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and I'm so honored to have her here. Be with us till the end. Hello, everyone. That's the first time we talk about Lyme, and I know everything in your body is kind of related. So we can't separate disease from our whole body. Today we have Heather Gray. She was with us in Summit, Wellness Summit, and I really enjoyed talking to her. And I said we have to have another one-on-one talk because we're going to discover about this disease and how she could recover from it. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so blessed that you reached out and said, hey, you need to join.
Yeah. So Heather, tell me about yourself first. What was your inspiration to go to functional medicine, and what do you know about this disease?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so the inspiration was my own health journey, right? And I think I even started your summit with talking about I was basically born constipated, right? I remember being a little girl and sitting on the potty and having my feet fall asleep because I had sat there for so long. And my mom just, dumping these nasty thick oils down my throat, to try to soften my stool. But even back then, nobody was trying to figure out, why is this young kid constipated, right? They were already throwing Band-Aids at symptoms, Band-Aids at symptoms. And so, you fast forward a few more years and a lot of childhood trauma. Turns out later, found out I had celiac disease, and that was the reason I was constipated at such an early age. And I actually didn't get diagnosed with celiac until I was 30 years old. So I went 30 years of being constipated and severe, gut, GI, inflammation, brain stuff. But, so the combination of that undiagnosed autoimmune disease, some major childhood trauma, and then by the time I was a teenager and I got bit by a tick when I was 13, I'd already became like the perfect host, right? Because there's a reason that it affected me more so than others. Some people's immune system can handle these certain critters when they come along, right? It's what makes you a good host. So it was about 2 years after I got bit. So I was 15 years old, and it was my first stint in the psych ward for trying to commit suicide. Lyme disease in kids especially really affects the brain and really affects the gut. And mental health issues already kind of ran in my family as well. My uncle had killed himself when I was 4 years old. So there's definitely a history of family mental health stuff. Probably stemming a lot with that celiac. Now that I look back at it, it's a genetic component. And if you inflame the gut, you're going to inflame the brain. So I'm curious, but anywho, I digress. So it was after having Lyme disease, celiac, Hashimoto's, endometriosis for 27 years, I think, before I finally got diagnosed. By that time, I had spent 2 or 3 times in the psych ward for suicide attempts. I was in like level between 7, 8 pain on a daily basis. Like everyday chores were so hard to do. I was exhausted all the time. I was in pain all the time. My brain didn't work, but on the outside, I looked normal. Right. So it was the funny thing that's different about Lyme compared to like something like cancer, right? You see somebody with a bald head and you know that they're sick, right? And you treat them and you show up differently for them. But I looked no different than I look now, when I was in the throes of dealing with this horrific disease that I've had for 27 years. And so the doctors are now throwing napalm at the Lyme disease, right? I thought they were trying to kill me in the process. There was no support of the host at all. It was just go after the critters. And after having something like this in my body for so long, my body didn't have the energy, the forces to fight this thing. So I kind of figured out really quickly, thank God, that if I was going to get better, I was going to have to learn something new, that I couldn't continue down this route. And lo and behold, I listened to Reed Davis on a podcast. So thank God for these type of podcasts, right? Putting out information so that people can see themselves in somebody else's story and go, oh my God, I can relate to that. Like, how many of you people watching today can relate to chronic constipation or chronic fatigue, brain fog, going to the doctor and saying, having your labs ran and having doctors say, well, your labs look fine, but you feel anything but fine, right? How many people have you experienced something like that? So I was watching Reed Davis on a podcast with Sean Croxton. It was called Underground Wellness. And Reed was talking about how you have to heal the gut. You have to balance hormones. You have to make sure detox pathways are open, that you have to look at this person as a whole, right? And it just made sense to me. Like, I remember begging my ex-husband at the time, like, I knew that this was the key to like my freedom, my salvation. Like, this program gave me hope for the first time in my life, because hope was not something that I didn't allow myself to hope very often, because when you're chronically sick like that and you don't know what's wrong and the doctors just want to put you on more prescriptions or back in the hospital or do surgery, right? Hope became a frivolous dream. And after listening to Reed speak, I got hope again. And that's what started me in this journey back in 2013.
Wow, you know what? I really love your story because it's so encouraging for people who suffer suffer from chronic disease. There are lots of people with IBS, with chronic pain, and even fertility. So I exactly understand what you talking about, because that's my path. The same thing happened to me. I didn't have Lyme, but I have other issues, and I didn't know, because you look fine by the time you are not, you don't have symptoms, too much symptoms. Nobody can diagnose you. You know that you may know that you have some problem, you may have some issues, but still you can't do anything about it because your lab look normal. I talked to one of friends, and she said, I got to menopause, and I was like, why didn't you do anything about it? She said, because everybody said, because here is cold, and there is no other help we can do about that. So it's kind of disappointing when you hear this kind of stories, and when you know in your heart that there should be a way, there should be something help you. So what do you do right now? How can you help others?
So yeah. So what I had to do differently was I stopped going after the Lyme with all the hardcore drugs, and I went back to the basics, right? Because they say that some like really large amount, I don't know the exact statistic, but it's like 80% of autoimmune diseases out there are lifestyle related, right? So think about that. We've gotten so far off track as humans as when we're supposed to sleep, how we're supposed to sleep, what we're supposed to eat, when we're supposed to eat, the toxins in our air, the toxins in our water, the toxins in our food. So I was brought up with, a lot of people like were brought up with the TV going, this is a part of a balanced breakfast. Bullcrap. That's diabetes in the making is what that is, right? So I was kind of brainwashed into eating McDonald's, drinking soda, taking Tylenol for every ache and pain. So that's what FDN teaches. It's like the foundational coaching, right? They even have the Dress for Success program. So it's diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. So I had to go back to the basics, right? Because you can't supplement your way out of a bad diet. You can't exercise your way out of a bad diet. Like, you've got to go back to the basics. And so I started cleaning up my gut and testing for food sensitivities. It turns out I was reacting to, apples, coconut, pork, and pepper, right? So all these things that are kind of like healthy foods, right? I was reacting to, and it was causing inflammation in my system. So I took out the offending foods, started to heal my gut, opened up my detox pathways, found out I've got massive DNA, genetic mutations in my detox pathways. And it's a no wonder I was so sick for so long. Like, I am the detox queen now. Like, last night I started off with a castor oil pack that I wore overnight into a coffee enema, followed by an infrared sauna and some skin brushing. Like, I love, love, love detoxing because I feel good for the first time in my life. So it was just cleaning up those foundations. And then I never really had to go back after Lyme again. I didn't have to like throw napalm at my body anymore because now my immune system keeps it in check. There was another piece that I've actually just picked up this last year because I went off my path for a little bit and gained weight back again. I was in pain again. And, sometimes as silly humans, we have to, it takes a couple times, right? We can be slow learners. And it was about this time last year where my new husband said, Heather, I'm not going to be married to an angry person anymore. He's like, I don't know what's going on with you, but this is not acceptable. And we need to figure out what's going on. And so I redid the labs and retested for food sensitivities, relooked at my thyroid, my hormones, my detox pathways, and lost like 50 pounds this last year, got out of pain again. So like the whole 9 yards. But the other piece that I added to it was trauma work, right? So with Dr. Amy Apigian, she's an amazing program, biology of trauma. And, she teaches about how if we've got this trauma, because I told you that I was basically, early childhood trauma, very traumatic childhood. And I never, ever dealt with that, right? So the gas was always on, right? My parasympathetic, my sympathetic was always out of whack. And yeah, I could heal so long with the physical, but if you don't add that piece into it, it's going to take you back to set point. And so I kept playing this game where I would get better and I'd fall off the wagon. I'd get better and I'd fall off the wagon. And so this last year I learned some somatic experiencing work to just really get me, out of fight or flight, right? The tiger's no longer chasing me. There's no longer bugs in my system. There's no longer the need for those alarm bells to go off. So I was able to quiet that down. And then I was able to heal on a whole new level. And so I've put together a program where I've put, a little bit of somatic experiencing work in with the FDN. So kind of married the two, to truly help people heal at a very basic foundational level, right? Because anything from there is just going to be beautiful when you build on top of it. But if you don't have a solid foundation, whatever you build is going to be like a house of cards. Exactly. And a little bit of wind is going to come by and blow you right over again.
So I have a few questions. First of all, how long did it take first time you got off that Lyme disease and you feel much healthier?
Better within like a month and a half, 2 months. Like it was pretty quick, especially when you look for some of the hidden stressors like food sensitivities. We kind of call that low hanging fruit, right? Because it's an immediate thing that we know is causing inflammation in our system. And so it didn't take long at all for me to start feeling better. Like I really started feeling stuff within a month and a half. And then by 3 months, like I was feeling like a rock star.
Another question is, what is Lyme and what are the symptoms and how do we know that it's started?
So that's a tricky question. There's so much controversy around this little critter. And it's funny that, I'm the one that, I've always been kind of a controversial person. So I thought it was funny that I contracted a controversial disease. But some people say it's a virus. Some people say it's a bacteria. Some people say it's, not anything. It's Epstein-Barr. Like there's so many. But from what I know, it's a spiral-shaped bacteria. It's actually in the same family as syphilis. So another reason that it affects your brain. And because it is a spiral shape, it can actually affect any tissue, any organ, any system in the body and start to shut it down. They call it the great mimicker because it really does. I mean, it can look like so many things in so many different people, anything from fibromyalgia to chronic pain to MS. A lot of MS folks are actually misdiagnosed Lyme folks. Alzheimer's, I mean, the list goes on and on, but a lot of common symptoms are mental, emotional, depression, anxiety, chronic pain, joint pain, big time, gut stuff. And then the fun one that I dealt with for a long time, Lyme rage, and it's actually a real thing. Like my and I think it had a lot to do with that trauma too in my system. So where now I have actually a little bit of a buffer. People are like, just count to 10, just breathe, and I'm like, you don't understand. There's no buffer there. It's react. But there's actually a term for it. It's called Lyme rage, and so yeah, so if you're hot-headed and moody, that might be another thing to look into. But yeah, it can look almost like anything and anybody.
When you talked about this rage, a lot of people are angry. They get angry very soon, and they don't have control of their emotions, and they may get depressed very easily, and they go to doctors, even psychopathic doctors or even psychologists, and they get medicated, unfortunately, without knowing they may have some underlying issues. That's the purpose of this podcast, because we're going to talk about holistic system that we have, right? So it's interesting you talk about anger, because stress and cortisol, as you know, that's the main hormone, can regulate other hormones, can actually affect other hormones. It's so easy. You go to doctor, they said you are stressed. Okay, this is not a good answer. I always repeat this in my podcast, because I know when I did the functional labs, then I see, oh, my cortisol level is so low. And I was like, oh, wow, I was in exhausted mode. And you don't want to believe it, because you think that everything looks normal, because your body tried to get back to your normal stage, compensate, adjust, but in one point your body can't, and you stay there for a long, long time. You are angry, you do so many things that you think that is not normal, but it's not. So I've seen in some people, even with a little bit change and shift in the lifestyle, they could change their whole body, right? And that's interesting, that even their all hidden layers, all the disease that they have, even they get a lot of improvements out of it. It's so interesting how body works.
Absolutely. I mean, I used to, so it was funny back in junior high, my nickname was BA for bad attitude, because I used to play basketball and I used to really throw elbows and get kind of physical on the basketball court. And then as an adult, I had a couple friends nickname me the Hulk, right? Hulk smash, because it didn't take me long, and I was fiery. And what sucked about that is because I'm normally a very genuine, loving, caring person. And for me to act that nasty that quickly was horrible. It was horrible. And I felt horrible afterwards. And I was always apologizing and always, and then I got this reputation of being difficult and, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't me. It wasn't who I was at the core. And I felt like I never had any control over it. So, after lowering that inflammation, after doing Dr. Amy's work, and after, working on my adrenals and supporting my thyroid, like I said, now for the first time in my life, I have a buffer to where if somebody cuts me off in traffic, I can actually choose to respond, to where I didn't have a choice before. And I think that's what, if anything, gets through to anybody, how many other people can relate to not having that. And then also then feeling shame and guilt because they can't control, right, that reaction. Like there could be a very real physiological reason to why you can't control that reaction. So how many of you can relate with that, right? So just know that it's not normal, but it's definitely a thing. And no, you're not broken. And no, there's not something, horribly, deeply, deep, dark wrong with you. There's just something going on in your body that you need to look deeper for.
Exactly. As you said, we need to adjust our frequency, I believe. Like in the morning when I get up, I try to have meditation, because it can help my body. It's like a puzzle, and I organize my brain what to do. And to be honest, it really it's really worth it. When you sit and try to not think or other stuff, just focus on whatever you have to do, it's really worth it. And that's amazing to see how your body works, your self-care method. I love it because that's the first thing in your life. Your first priority is you. Even if I'm saying I'm a mother, I have a 4-year-old baby, but I just imagine during the COVID, a lot of mothers stay at home and they couldn't actually take care of themselves with all the noises and everything. No, she's going to school. I have some free time. I try not, everything is so quiet and I just try to work and concentrate on what I want. That's the first thing. Like prioritize you as the first thing in your life. Because nothing can regulate your sleep when your circadian rhythm is not working, is not, you don't have enough sleep, you can't exercise or you can have a good diet. This is going to mess up your body. So another interesting thing in your words I like is like you think, okay, I get rid of this disease and it's not going to get back to me. Yes, it will. If you have trauma, if you have stress, you may get back to that again. So you have to try to constantly be mindful, constantly work on yourself, constantly care about your body and your emotions. Yeah,
Absolutely. Think about it. We didn't get that way because we were, right? We usually got that way because we were the last one on our list to take care of, right? We're usually rushing through life, grabbing a bite here, just kind of doing the hustle, right? The day-to-day hustle. And it's so typical cliche, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first, and you can't pour from an empty cup. Like they don't become cliches for no reason. Like, but they're rooted in truth. Like, and I had a client, and it broke my heart because she had some massive issues with Lyme and mold and pyrrole disorder. And all she wanted was another lab and more supplements, and another lab and more supplements. And I couldn't get her to slow down and do the somatic exercises that I taught in the program. And she just was like, no mindfulness thing is going to help me get over this. I need blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, trust me, I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking from a lot of research, and all my clients, it's like, slow down. What did you do for you today? Right? Take that list and cut it in half. Like, and it's sad. I get the fear. I get that if we don't keep all these plates spinning in the air, that somehow something really bad is going to happen. But if you get real with yourself, when was the last time that happened? Right? But how long can you continue to function and suffer? And you know what I mean? Like, at some point, your body's going to make you slow down. If you don't choose to
exactly.
slow down, at some point, your body's going to say,
Too late.
and we're done.
Too
Exactly.
late when you are diagnosed with cancer or other
Exactly.
disease. Still cancer in earlier stage, you can help your body, but when you are very, very exhausted, it's really difficult to compensate. So it's
Absolutely.
better you stop it whenever you feel that your body is like, go, 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 you're gonna do this, that, and then too much work, overload, and you want to be perfect. Don't be perfect. Nobody's perfect. You just enjoy your life, right?
Absolutely. I gave that
Yeah,
crap up a long time ago, and I love it. So now, like, if I'm pushing myself too hard, like, my brain fog is the first thing that kicks in. So it's almost like my brain, it shuts down. It's like I can't concentrate, I can't focus. It's like, nope, we're done. And I can try to push through that, and sometimes I do, and then I'm knocked out for like a day or two. But if I listen to it at that moment, and even just take like a 20-minute sunshine break, right? 20-minute get my feet on the ground and do some earthing break. It's amazing what that does. So funny, I was a smoker for 25 years. And actually that helped my stress level, one, because of smoker, but two, I would take the breaks, right? I would go outside and I would take a break, and I'm breathing differently. And I noticed all this stress when I quit smoking. I'm like, what's going on? It's like, oh, it's because I just kept pushing myself. I wouldn't take breaks. I wouldn't get outside. I wouldn't breathe properly. And so I now take sunshine breaks instead of cigarette breaks because, I mean, every hour I got to get up away from my computer, walk outside for a minute, and just unplug.
Oh, these are amazing. Like, I know a lot of people, like a lot of smokers, they quit smoking, they get back to it again. And because there are always justification, they justify themselves. That's going to be for one time, and then it's not going to be one time, because as soon as you introduce smoking to yourself, you like the joy of it, and then it's going to be continued. Yeah, we're going to talk about this in another podcast. I love talking about how we can quit the smoking, drugs, or that's going to be a very interesting topic as well.
Absolutely.
I can see you have a lot of websites. You have Facebook, Instagram. You also have a channel, which is great. What do you do on your website? Let me see your website. It's called discoveringhealthfdn.com.
Correct. A lot of great resources, a lot of videos, and then just a way to get a hold of me, you know, because right now I'm in the middle of a launch with my 90-day program. And so it's a good way to kind of click in and get a free consult and find out, you know, if any of this story resonated with you and you want to look deeper into your own health story, right? If you've been to doctors and they've told you that your labs look normal, but you feel anything but normal, right? I'd love for you just to hop on and click in there and get a free consult and, you know, let's chat.
Thank you so much for being here. If you have any last word, can help angry people, please let me know.
Don't shame yourself, right? Stop beating yourself up for being angry. At some point, that anger, 9 times out of 10, is covering up another emotion, right? So if you can actually sit with that anger, usually her name is sadness, right? So normally I found out that when my feelings got hurt for some reason, or I felt like there's some sort of injustice, that's what kind of sparked a lot of my anger. So get curious with anger. Don't shame and feel bad over your anger. Make friends with your anger. It's there for a reason. It's trying to tell you something.
Thank you so much. I wish to have you more and more because I really enjoyed this talk.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Please subscribe to Pantea Kalhor Transition channel and order my book, The Gap, in Amazon. Thank you for watching.